Are you ready to make a junk journal with me? I wanted to make a quick and easy junk journal, and I had all of these leftover pages from my printables Etsy shop because I print out all of my pages to test them out, of course, before trying to sell them, just to make sure they come out looking all pretty. And I also like to use them to make junk journals. So this is my base paper junk journal. I am not doing layouts. I'm just coffee staining these particular pages. The one that you had seen on the top, the blue one, I decided to not coffee stain that printable. I'm going to use that as the cover for my junk journal. As I had shared in a short video, there is an easy way to add journaling lines to the backs of your coffee stain pages by using baking drying racks. There's usually a great raised set of evenly spaced out lines on your drying racks. So I make sure that they're facing the correct way for when I fold the pages. This is an easy way to add journaling lines. You just let your coffee stained pages dry on those drying racks, and then you have perfectly spaced out journaling lines. Tea stains look beautiful as well using this method and really turn out great too. In fact, as I am doing this voiceover, I am tea staining some cardstock pieces, and I'm drying some of them on my baking drying racks. So I'll pop a picture up here how it turns out when I finish editing this video. This particular day is a really nice sunny day with a soft breeze, so I am going to let these dry outside on my deck. However, you can put your oven at a very low temperature. I set mine at I have a gas oven, I set it at about 170 degrees. And I will put my pages on baking sheets and put them in the oven until they dry. And then sometimes I care about them being perfectly flat, and I will layer them on top of each other and smush them between some very heavy large books. And I'll leave them like that overnight, and by the next day they're perfectly flat pieces with a lot of added character. But this particular day, it's a nice day outside, so I'm going to let them dry outside, and I'm not going to try to smush them flat because I wanted them to be a little wrinkled and have like a rough edging to them. I'm not letting them soak for all that long in the coffee, so they're not going to be dark coffee stained. They're going to be lightly coffee stained. Plus, I just love all these precious images, so I don't want heavy staining on them. So I set them outside, and while they're drying, I'm getting to work on the cover. I picked a really pretty piece of cardstock to be my back piece. And I'll tell you what, I made a lot of mistakes along the way with this junk journal cover. I will be the first one to admit that. I did not get out my ruler. I was being lazy, so I was eyeballing it, which for sure, you can eyeball a junk journal cover and layout, and that's what's so much fun about junk journaling. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder. They're unique pieces of art, in my opinion, and you can't go wrong. The measurements can't go wrong. But for me personally, on this day, I would have liked a thicker binding, and if I could go back, I would have gotten my ruler out and made sure that I was spacing everything out, to best suit my needs for this particular junk journal. Again, I did not do that, but that's okay. I still love how it turned out, and actually my son really wanted this junk journal, so he's going to be keeping this. So here we go. I'm folding it up to get the spine. However, like I said, it's a little thinner than I would like. I mean, look at that. It's not very thick at all. So I'm not going to be able to add a whole lot to each of the signatures. However, I still like how it turned out. Now again, I did not measure. So when folding in the sides, and as you saw, I added a piece of paper to the inner part of the junk journal as the backing. I love that printable, so I wanted to use that as a feature piece. Again, didn't measure, so I had to refold one of the sides, which made a kind of sloppy crease. Again, I don't really mind a sloppy crease. It's just, if I would have measured, I wouldn't have run into that problem. So I sealed up the sides with my glue, and then later on I go back in and I add double-sided tape. If you have a sewing machine, you can sew these outer edges, but I just didn't want to sew on this particular day, so I just used my other materials in sealing the sides and edges. I wanted to add a little extra special touch to the front cover, so I got out these really pretty push pins that I picked up at an Ollie's in Aberdeen, Maryland, which I do share that Ollie's Aberdeen, Maryland haul in a short video, I believe, and a thrift haul at the end of a thrift haul video of my Aberdeen, Maryland finds. I mean, that Ollie's had so many cool crafting supplies. My Ollie's is a little light on the crafting supplies. Okay, mistake number 3, eyeballing. Yet again, I didn't like the spacing of that push pin, so I had to move it. It's okay, my second hole does cover up the first hole that I made. So there we go. I don't know if it's like, I don't know about you, but sometimes it's not a matter of being lazy and not using the measuring tape. Sometimes it's, or ruler I should say. Sometimes it's a matter of just relaxing and not wanting to be like too perfect about junk journaling, and just kind of doing my thing without the pressure of it being perfectly spaced and measured out. So the backs of them, of course, have a nice sharp tip to them. So I got out the pliers and folded those in. And I went back over them with some decorative tape that I had and that I hauled at that same Ollie's, just to seal up the back and so you wouldn't see those pieces. I just didn't want anyone to get cut by that pointy edge. However, I guess you could wrap it with twine or string or dangle some charms to stick out the bottom of your junk journal. There's so many things that you can do to even utilize that back part of the push pin, but I decided to go with the decorative tape, and I think it turned out really pretty. I like how it turned out. By the time I finished making my cover, the junk journaling coffee stain pages were ready, and it was time to bring them in, pile them up. This is how they turned out. I absolutely love how they turned out. Printers do not print all the way to the edges of the printer paper. I decided to leave the white border edges on all the pages. I really like the look of that. I wasn't sure if I was going to tear them or cut them, but I decided to leave them on because I really like how it looks after they were coffee stained. Now this is how the journaling lines turn out on the coffee stain pages. It looks so pretty. It's just a nice faint line. Really happy with how that turned out. I next got to work on folding up all of my pages and getting them in the order that I wanted them to be in. This is actually my favorite part. I love getting creative on this and adding in envelopes and all sorts of things, although this time I left it kind of plain and just used my test papers. So it turned out really good, I think. I like the order that I put them in. Since I didn't coffee stain all of my pages, I wanted to glue some of the pages together so that both sides would have an image on them and it wouldn't just be a plain white look. So I got to work on doing that on some of those pages. I did tear one of my junk journal pages and glued on the back that cute little image, and then I just did like a rough cut so the edges would be rough like the torn piece of paper, and I like how that turned out too. The next step was to make sure that I had everything in the right place, and now this is mistake number 4, I guess this would be now. I did not double check all of my pages in the end, just some of them, and when I sewed them into the binding of the junk journal cover, I had sewn in one of my images upside down, which I don't mind it being upside down, and neither does my son, but if you mind your pages and some of them being upside down, then double check every single page before sewing it into your junk journal. I have a ton of vintage embroidery thread that I had picked up through Facebook Marketplace. I love using authentically vintage and antique items and ephemera. So I am using a tan color vintage embroidery thread to sew in my signatures or my pages. And I used push pins to line up the holes. Again, did not measure, but it turned out fine without measuring. And so I used my push pins to push in all the holes, and then I lined them up with my junk journal spine and made sure that the holes lined up. And what you do to sew in your junk journal pages, if you don't know already, is you go up through the center of your pages and you then go out the back like that. I secure it kind of tight from the center. Then when I do that, you can tie something to the end of your string, or I just kind of go back and make sure that it's tightly secure in the end. Then you go up through the top, making sure that that's nice and tight. Then go back through the center hole, out the other side, down to the bottom, back through to the inner part of the pages, and then you can tie it off, or while your string or whatever you use to attach it is attached to the needle, you can thread on a charm or do all sorts of things, but I like the look of just a little piece of tied off string in the center sometimes, and that's what I decided to do this time. Now moving on to careless mistake number 1006 here, or careless mistake number 6. I don't even know what number I'm on at this point, but I did want to sew that piece of paper in the center of the signatures. However, I realized I left it out, so I just folded it a little smaller and tucked it in between the two holes of the binding. So it fit in there perfectly, and I forgave myself and moved on with my day, enjoying this work of art here. There's the upside down page, as you had seen. I think I was just looking at the one side of the page and not the other when I was lining it up, which that front side of the page could go in either direction and not have been upside down, so it just caused that back piece of paper to be upside down. Still love how it turned out. I think it's precious. I love all the images. I really like the tape at the bottom and those cute push pins on the front. And I hope you enjoyed watching me put this junk journal together, mistakes and all. And I hope you try and put a junk journal together too. It's a lot of fun. It is really relaxing. Yes, mistakes can happen along the way, but because it's an individual journal and it has its own character and style, whenever you make one, there's not going to be another one that's alike. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay if it's not perfect. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Are you ready to?